Well, I want to welcome our viewers to a special podcast because I know you've heard some concepts in the past, but you're going to hear a unique concept on our show today. We had to bring Ashleigh in from across Kennesaw. There's Ashleigh right there. Now, either she's short or I'm tall, or there's a combination of both. But you're just going to hear some cool things from Ashleigh. I met her a few weeks ago and I said, man, we got to have you on the podcast. So Ashleigh, tell our viewers who you are, the business you have, and who you serve, and then we'll have some fun.
Awesome. Well, my name is Ashleigh Westbrook. I am from Kennesaw originally. I went away to school for a couple years, but ended up coming back and settling down here in Kennesaw. My husband's from here as well. We met in high school and went long distance for college, but eventually decided that we were going to stay in Kennesaw and get married. So we live here, and I have a coffee trolley. It's kind of like a food truck, but we have all kinds of different coffee that we serve, and we are a mobile unit, so we can go all around the North Georgia area to weddings, events, parties, any special occasions, pop-up shops, to serve the community and reach businesses and just provide a really good atmosphere for people to connect over coffee. So
that is awesome. Now, I know we probably might not have time to hear, how did you make a long distance relationship work? That's probably a different podcast. So we'll get into that later, but that is interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, what was the brainchild behind it? Like, did you wake up one day and say, okay, I got to do this? Tell our viewers how that came about.
Well, when I graduated high school, I really wanted to do therapy for people. I wanted to become a counselor. I really love connecting with people, and I really love hearing people's stories and that kind of thing. So I went to school at Georgia Southern University. I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I worked all through college. And while I was there, the small town of Statesboro opened up a coffee shop, a coffee roaster called Three Tree Coffee Roaster. And from the first time that I started going there, I knew like something about this business was different. The atmosphere was so welcoming. Their mission to empower the farmers and pay them a fair wage, to engage the community around them, and to end human trafficking was a huge part of their vision. And so I just knew something about that business was different, and I really loved it. Right. And I decided, I spent all my time here anyways. I might as well get a job here.
Yes.
So I started working at the coffee shop and discovered a real love for coffee beyond like just the normal grab a cup, but like the science behind coffee and the ways that it can, number one, connect people, but number two, like I'm a real big believer that the products we buy matter. So, and they have the option to make a difference. So learning about the ways that coffee is something most people buy. And so if I can purchase something that has a greater impact than just me, like that's something I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So I loved working there. I was a barista. I was a baker. I had the best time. And I really was like, man, I could see myself doing something like this for a living. But I knew I was graduating school. I was going to move back to Kennesaw, get married, and, start a life up here. And so when I moved back to Kennesaw, I started working at a coffee shop for a little bit. And then I went for a little bit more of a stability move, and I worked in accounting for a couple years. And sitting behind a desk 40 hours a week, I was really thinking like, I don't know that I want to do this for the rest of my life. This is not something that I see myself really like pursuing long term.
Yeah.
And I really believe that life is short, and it's too short not to do something that you really love, Wow. And I felt like when I worked in college and I had that glimmer of like, wow, this is something that I love to do. Doing something else felt like I was selling myself short.
Right.
So I thought, what would it look like for me to pursue coffee long term?
Right.
And the coffee shop actually already had a trolley that was doing weddings in the North Georgia, South Georgia area.
Right.
And they ended up calling me when they were up here doing a wedding and said, hey, will you come work with us and do a wedding up here with us? So I said, absolutely. I'm going to live out my college, reminisce.
Yeah.
And I jumped in that trolley and like worked a wedding with an old friend and thought like, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I love. So I came home and talked to my husband and said, what do you think if we started our own coffee business? Is that crazy?
Yeah. Well, how was that conversation?
Yeah, you know, I'm a bit of a dreamer, but I think he is too. So he
Okay.
said, okay, let's think about that. And the more I went back to my 9 to 5, sitting in front of a computer, I thought like, I just knew more and more like this wasn't what I wanted. I wanted
Right.
more for myself. And I was willing to take a risk on like starting a business and not knowing what that was going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, but I ended up reaching out to the coffee roaster and said, hey, I decided I'm going to start my own coffee business. Will you be my supplier? And the cool thing was they said, you know what, Ashleigh, we've got an even better opportunity for you. Instead of starting your own brand and just using our beans, we have enough business to split the state with you, essentially. They said we have another shell that matches our trolley that's waiting to be renovated and put into action. And we really think that you'd be great for it. So for me, that was kind of like, I could still take the risk, have my own LLC, my own business,
right?
But at the same time, have the mentorship, the guidance, and know that what I was doing was like a really well thought out model.
Right.
So for me, that was the best of both worlds. I couldn't have even dreamed that one. So I said, absolutely. So kind of jumped in that way and started to, you know, they renovated that trolley
right.
to make its twin so that we could both share the Georgia area and go from there. So I think the biggest hurdles for me were the permitting process.
Okay.
Up here versus in South Georgia.
Right.
So that's been a journey, but that's essentially how I got where I got here.
Well, I can say this: when I first met you, I was going like, to understand and jump into entrepreneurship is no easy task. And it does take a lot of fortitude and persistence and all. So why don't you take our viewers through that permitting process that you spoke about? What was that like and what could they learn from it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest hurdles for me were that the way that the Georgia Department of Public Health works is that food and beverage are in the same category. So even though I wasn't selling any food products, I had to be a permitted food truck.
Okay.
So that meant a commercial kitchen with a 3-tiered sink that had a health permit that could not be a shared space, like it had to be its own entity.
Okay.
And that in itself was, okay, how do I do that? How do I find that? Is that something I need to build? Is that something that I can rent? And I ended up renting a kitchen from someone who used to have a food truck. So it honestly was like the stars aligned and the Lord really opened doors because that was not going to happen for me either way. So that's been a really, really cool thing to have is I was able to kind of move into that space. I had to install a grease trap.
Really?
With
oh my gosh, I'm familiar with restaurants.
Water.
Really?
So I think meeting the restaurant standard was the biggest challenge, was knowing I'm not serving food, I'm not frying chicken, but I needed to be, you know, food safe certified, have the grease trap, follow all the monthly protocols for having that pumped and the disposal of my gray water and like all of that. I think I got a little in over my head.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Right.
And that permitting process took honestly close to a year.
Wow.
Didn't really see that coming.
Yeah.
And it really made me question, like, do I want to do this? Because I was already, I think, too far gone to turn around, and quitting's not something that I do lightly. So I think it really made me search deep for like, how badly do I want this?
Yeah.
You know, it made me question in some ways, like, should I have just gotten a job as a barista somewhere?
Yeah.
You know, like,
no, yeah. You know, these are good questions.
Yeah.
I'm sure our viewers love to hear because it really talks about the persistent and the things that you have to do because you're not getting a guaranteed paycheck every week like you did in your accounting position or whatever when you're working for somebody else. It's the unknown.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, a year now I'm curious, like So down in Statesboro, did they have any incline that you were going to fall into the food and beverage part of the permitting, or was it different down there? I'm sure you were talking to them all along.
Yeah, we were all really surprised because their trolley fell up underneath of their coffee shop permits.
Okay.
So theirs was necessarily like an extension of what was already existing there.
I got
So
you.
starting from scratch up here, I think we knew, okay, the health department will need to come and do an inspection.
Right.
But didn't know that it was going to be two separate permits. I was going to need a mobile permit and a base of operations permit.
Okay.
So those were the two surprises.
Well, I think for our viewers that are understanding and putting themselves in the mindset of entrepreneurship, it's, you have to weave and bob and just do everything that you don't expect. And it's not like they give you a blueprint, even if you buy like even so much as a franchise, maybe it's less, but there still is the unknown. You just don't know. COVID was a perfect example of the unknown. I mean, all of a sudden everybody was in a different mindset. So what I'm curious, like, I love the idea where you're talking about coming alongside of weddings and special events. So what would that look like? What are people saying to you, like when they are considering a coffee, your business for their event? What are they asking about? Having a type of experience, or help our viewers with that?
Yeah, so I think the cool thing about coffee is that it really does connect people. Most people see it as an essential. And so it's an opportunity for people to elevate the experience that they are offering to their customers, their guests, people that are attending any sort of event. And that's the thing I think I really love about the trolley is it's so flexible in that you can have it for a wedding who want, people are moving away from the alcohol packages at weddings and moving to something a little more family friendly, something that's a little more cost efficient. And that's something that's fun. I'll tell you, there's nothing like a caffeinated dance floor at a wedding.
That's
been a great time.
Exactly, because I quit drinking after I had my stroke, so I don't drink anymore. So I always am now aware when, every time you turn around, it's alcohol's in your face. I mean, it's okay. I'm not saying like you don't have to drink, but it's nice to know coffee is, you're right, a connector. I mean, local coffee shops, a person was explaining to me the other day, the evolution of Starbucks opening up a whole industry. And really, I didn't think of it until I saw all these local coffee shops popping up, what it had done, because you used to walk into a Starbucks and it was more personal. But over time, I think you get so big, you lose the personalization. Versus you walk into a local coffee shop, I'm sure you'll agree. You know people. You're greeting them by name. You're talking to them. You're building that rapport. Where Starbucks, that's just not today. I'm not saying it wasn't years ago, but it's changed. But it really opened up the minds of how important a local coffee shop is for the community. It's like it's a community joining a place where you come in. We'll say that again.
It's a living room.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's, hey, this is what we want to put. It is a living room, and you think for yourselves how much goes on in a living room is engagement, talking, building rapport, building relationships. So let's go back to, like, let's say I'm a wedding planner and I'm looking at different things to offer my clients. Why would I consider your option versus some of the other options? Because budget wise, a person generally comes in with an X amount of money, but weddings are like, it's like good, better, best. Most of them go, give me the best. So talk about the levels of what you provide to a wedding planner.
Yeah, I think the cool part about weddings is that it's usually the one time in people's lives when they say, let's pull out all the stops, right? Like it's the one, if you're going to do it, you're going to go all the way if you can, right?
Yep.
And I think that weddings are unique in that no two weddings look alike.
Right.
And the cool thing is, I think bride and grooms have the opportunity to offer their guests something unique.
Yes.
Something completely different that in the sea of weddings, they'll say, oh, remember so-and-so's wedding had that coffee trolley? We had lattes and danced all night, and like that fun experience, I think is unique. And I think it just offers something completely different. And in that same thread, like we've been able to connect with local businesses and, schools and downtown events in the same way. Like it's a unique experience that people get to, because that's really what it's about. I think it's the experience, right? It's the connection and the experience.
Right.
So having those two worlds kind of come together is like perfect.
Yeah, I love it. When you told me what you did when I was at the KBA Wake Up event, I really thought back to when my daughter went to Asheville for a weekend. They got on like a beer cart or something that drives around, which is pretty popular now. I mean, especially up in Asheville where they have about 50 local breweries. But if you think about coffee and the evolution of it, what excites me about what you're doing is, when you said a caffeinated dance floor. I mean, if you've got some caffeine in you, you're going to want to dance. So that's a big advantage. But like, do you do corporate events? Tell our viewers what else besides the obvious, which is weddings. What other events are you're finding that people are requesting out there?
Yeah, I think especially in this season, it's a great time to give back to employees and people who support you in your business. And so that's been a big one. So we've done apartment complexes, so resident appreciation, resident events. I know in the past we've done different employee appreciation type things. Let's see, that all starts to blur together. We're doing a 5K tomorrow morning.
Really? So to start off, everybody's gathering at the you're going to have your coffee. What do you call it again?
It's a trolley.
Trolley. I knew there was a different word for it. Okay. So the trolley will be there and the people can come up and sample, and not sample, but buy coffees, different coffees. So what kind of different coffees are you offering on the trolley?
So we've got like a traditional French pressed black coffee for people who like it plain and simple.
Right.
Which my morning cup is always a good black cup.
Yeah.
Love it. And we've got all the fixins, cream and sugar and everything. We do cold brew.
Okay.
Cold brew is delicious. You've never had cold brew till you've had 3-tree cold brew. So good.
I'm curious because I know somebody that drinks cold brew here at Overture. What's the difference between cold brew and regular coffee?
Yeah. So cold brew is brewed over the course of typically somewhere between 15 to 24 hours. So ours is about 17 hours.
Okay.
And it's an immersion type of brew. So the grounds sit with the cold water for about 17 hours. So it comes out an extremely strong concentrate. So with that concentrate, you can add water and have like a regular cold brew beverage. You can add milk and have more of a cold brew latte. So it just gives you opportunities to mess with the strength.
Okay.
All of that. So it's a really non-acidic version of an iced coffee.
Oh, really? So that's a basic difference, is the acidic within hot coffee and a cold brew?
Yeah, traditionally cold brew has way less acidity.
Okay. What do you say, like, so when you said it took 17 hours for you to have your cold brew, does it last less than coffee? Like, I know a lot longer. Okay.
Life. So typically a hot cup of coffee, once that sucker goes cold,
you're done.
We're pretty done with it, right? Yeah. But that's the great thing about cold brew is it has a longer storage life. Okay. So you can bottle that concentrate and keep it in your fridge for a couple weeks.
Really?
It's great.
Holy mackerel. So, and the basic difference, I've seen some cold brew machines and stuff out there. So the whole process is, what did you say? Cold infusion and
immersion. Yep.
Immersion. Okay. So a person could have cold brew a lot longer than the regular coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really good to know. What are mostly people selecting when they come to the trolley? What's the most popular?
Well, if we decide to bring the espresso machine out with us, which depending on the event, the size of the event or the weather, that's something we'll do. Lattes are a big star. We love a good latte. That's typically like our go-to. That's most people's go-to. So if you're having an event, say that's like maybe a little bit simpler, you don't have as many guests, maybe you bring out the hot coffee and the cold coffee, keep it nice and simple. But if we're going a little bit more, pull out all the stops, we'll have the espresso machine to do all the fancy latte art and real fun drinks like that.
Wow, that's, there's so much to coffee. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was 40, and I would get up early and we would take our girls on a road trip, and we'd leave at like, say, 4. Now I'd be so tired by 9, I couldn't keep my eyes open. And for some reason back then, I just didn't get into coffee. And then it was later in life when Starbucks hit the scene and all these other that I was going, what was I thinking about? I mean, the caffeine alone. I mean, now I took a thermos of it and I just drink coffee, and I was not like trying to keep myself awake. So what do you see as far as like down the road? What would you like? Where would you like to take your business? I know I don't like to get too far out, but what's your vision of where you would like to take the trolley?
Yeah, I honestly, I think something that's been really cool about coming up under a bigger coffee roaster is the larger the coffee roaster gets, the more of a household name we're becoming, you could say. We're kind of expanding the brand, and I feel like I get to do that with them, which is wonderful. The roaster's growing, Three Trees becoming more and more popular. It's getting into more coffee shops, more businesses, more churches are using our coffee beans. So the more our brand builds, the more I would love to have a brick and mortar here in this North Georgia area. That would be honestly the ultimate goal. That'd be wonderful. So that's really cool.
I love that. I knew I'm sure you're being mentored by the people from Three Trees, but I was in the restaurant business, say 15 years ago, when food trucks came on the scene. And the big advantage with food trucks is a restaurateur could get in business without a brick and mortar lease. And they would go to where the people were. So it made sense that they would go, food truck first, then as it developed. Now, certainly existing restaurants went right to food trucks as a way to add another avenue to it. So that's it. I love how you say that the brick and mortar. I love local coffee shops. I mean, there's just something magical about the personality of it. So Three Trees, what do you say is unique about that versus other coffee beans that you've been exposed to?
Yeah, I think the fact that Three Trees is really a family. Having worked there and being mentored there by Philip is just incredible. They care so much about the quality and how coffee tastes is a really big deal. But even more than that, their heart for paying their farmers fair wages, and the impact that they want to have in the community and donating to human trafficking, and ending that is incredible. And I think that the small town, large feel, the saying of one of the sayings of the roaster is local roast, global reach. And I think that's really cool to think that something we do here locally can have an impact globally. So I think out of 100 reasons why they're different, that's the biggest one that really touches my heart and makes me know that, what I'm doing matters. Because I think in this whole process of entrepreneurship, I said, man, I really quit my full-time job with a 401k and health insurance and to put it all on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it worth it? And I think at the end of the day, knowing the impact that even buying and drinking our coffee has reminds me it is worth it.
Well, I don't know your husband, but I think he's very proud of you.
Yes.
And so that's always an added benefit when
Definitely.
Because we just had Organized Plus in here, and she was telling her story, and basically similar, being supported by a spouse means a lot.
It does. My husband is a behavior therapist for children with autism.
Oh, really?
And he loves what he does, and he's really good at it. And so for him to find this career that he really feels like he's making a difference and he really enjoys, and to watch me work at a job where I was just not experiencing that, he wanted so badly for me to know what that was like. So when I kind of said, this is something that's on my heart, I think I really want to do it, he was like, what do we have to lose? Like, we're young. We're young. Like, we don't have kids. Like, it's just the time to take risks. And he really stood beside me, and he jumps in when he can. When he can, he comes and supports me all of our late night doing dishes and booking events. And it's really incredible to have somebody that stands beside you and says, like, this is your dream and it's become my dream too. And it's really special.
That is. Well, let's give a good shout out to him, because I love the people that serve autism. So where can you share where he currently is employed or anything where we can let our viewers know, give him a shout out, because his wife's crushing it?
He works at Autismness. And it's based in Marietta. So he works at the MDE school, and then he has some home clients. And so
well, we'll do this, Ashleigh. We're going to put a link in the show notes for not only your business, but we're going to put his business in there too.
Awesome.
That way, when people that know people with autism and want to reach out to them, they can reach out to them. And then all our event planners have to take note that Three Trees is in business and crushing it. And you want to be able to contact Ashleigh and get a hold of her and give. I mean, I'm a firm believer in giving people options. So when you're coming in and you're getting married, you want to have as many options to put that special experience together.
Definitely.
And I think there is a trend towards non-alcoholic options. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of cool to be able to still have that experience of, what the trolley can do without, the alcohol involved. So that's good. So tell our people how they can get a hold of you.
So I think following us on Instagram would be great.
Okay.
At 3 Tree Trolley.
Okay.
We post on the Instagram our pop-up things, so the different events we're at during the week, and then all of our extra booking information is on there. You can also email me at Ashleigh, which is ASHLEIGH at 3treecoffee.com.
Awesome. Well, I tell you, I always want you to give our viewers a takeaway and what they can remember you by. So would you mind sharing with our viewers a final word?
Final word. I would say that I think going back to the global reach and reminding ourselves that the things we have so much authority in the things that we buy and the decisions that we make when it comes to purchasing.
Right.
So I think about where you're getting your coffee from. It matters. And just be reminded that we each have opportunities to make a difference, even if that just means buying our coffee from somewhere else. The little things matter. And, not giving up when taking risks seems hard and scary. But, with my experience, like, the Lord is really kind and he keeps his promises. And he's, my faith has grown so much in the last few years. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to meet people and grow and trust him more. So.
Oh, well, man, Ashleigh, you knocked it out of the park on that. I have nothing to say on that. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, we wish you all the success in the world. I know you're in good hands, and we'll have our viewers be able to reach out to you. We'll put the links in the show notes and we'll be able to see you in downtown Kennesaw and other areas, special events.
Yes.
3 Trees Trolley. Thank you, Ashleigh, for being our guest. And we know you have plenty to do. So we're going to let you go, get back to work because the weekend is coming.
It's on its way.
All right. Thank you, Ashleigh.